Up? How's everybody doing? Doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's 95 and humid here in Minnesota. Just praying the sunshine stays and the snow stays away. Yeah, it's been good riding weather. You get your knees in the breeze and get these old bikes on the road, and the weather's perfect for that once you're moving. And can't complain when the sun's shining. I'm smiling.
Myself and Fix My Hog to talk more about old Harleys and how to keep them running. But let's start with your background.
All right. Well, it's going to be a hard shoe to fill here after Matt Woxler. He's kind of a legend. That man. He's got more nuts and bolts for old bikes than I will ever dream of. But yeah, we'll go with what we got here and do a good job that we can and show you what we have. And a little bit about me. I'm a high school shop teacher. I've been on bikes my whole life through my parents. My mom rides an old shovelhead and a Sportster. My dad's got panheads and old shovelheads he's had since the early '70s. And it's just kind of a family tradition. Like when we were little kids, we'd be in the back of Dad's chopper or in a sidecar. He's got a police specialist sidecar. Be taking us to town festivals and bike shows and stuff. And back then it was just a lifestyle. It wasn't to be cool for any social media because there wasn't any. It was just the way we were born and raised and grew up. And my dad did it because he loved it. It was a hobby for him. He didn't do it full-time job. He was a sheet metal worker, so he just taught me that, hey, when the weekends are here, get them bikes out, wrench on them, fix them up, get them going good, and let's take a spin, man. So it's been a good life. I really feel fortunate to be raised the way I was through my parents. And now I'm trying to pass that torch, to the next generation of my kids and my students and just anybody that I come across with, to try to put smiles on their face with old motorcycles and cool stories and just, make memories that'll last forever.
No, absolutely. So if I'm not mistaken, you grew up in Milwaukee or just outside Milwaukee?
Yep, New Berlin, Wisconsin. I was graduated New Berlin Eisenhower in 1991. I went to UW Stout, Menominee, Wisconsin, to be a shop teacher. Met my lovely wife Amy, and she got me to move up here to Minnesota, and I've been here ever since. And we got three healthy boys and a nice little 10-acre farm here with a lot of old bikes and cars and trucks and tractors, and life is good, man. We're happy.
So what was your first bike?
My first bike was a 1952 K model Sportster, and I still have that bike. So how that kind of worked out is, as a kid, I mean, if you go way back, I had mini bikes, obviously the old
Sure.
booty bikes and my YZ80 that I got when I was in third grade. And, there's been a lot of little build-up bikes, but my first actual road bike was a 52K model. And my father gave that to me as a basket case as a college graduation present when I was getting ready to get into teaching because I really wanted to buy a bike right away to get on the road, but I just didn't have the money, college debt, and obviously teachers don't make a whole lot, so I was like, it's going to be a while until I can get a Harley. And yeah, it's like, no, you graduate, and you come down this summer, and we're going to build a bike that's I'm going to give you. So that was pretty cool. And I got that bike in my barn up top. It's a story that I tell everybody who asks about it. It's going to go and be handed down to my kids someday, and hopefully they keep it and give it to their kids. And it's one of those bikes that it was just a start of my whole career and my whole life as a guy riding a motorcycle around town and going to work every day on it and taking it cross country. And so it's one you could never sell, So I'm glad I still have it.
Nice. Nice. So then did you start wrenching on bikes on that K model Sportster and doing like custom fabrication? Was that kind of like what you learned on?
That was the training wheels that I was just getting on to figure stuff out, And back then, I wasn't trying to chop it; I was just trying to put it together. The motor was cashed and there was parts missing, and so I started to learn real fast. Hey, swap meets are my friend. We didn't really have a good eBay or chopper swapper stuff online, Instagram stuff, and all
Yeah.
that. So you had to actually pound the pavement and go to swap meets and see what you could find. Word of mouth, talking to people. You get in with the old timers and tell them what you have, and word travels fast. The next thing you know, you get a phone call. Yeah, I got that swing arm you need, or I got those fork tubes you're looking for. So it was a fun build. Learned a lot. It wasn't anything crazy. Kept it fairly stock, but then that just got me going. Like, I need to get into a big twin now. My dad, he had a knucklehead when he was 13, 14ish. He said he was really young.
Wow.
He was mowing weeds at the farmer down the street, and he would walk down to his buddy's house in the neighborhood next door where he had the knucklehead hidden so my grandma wouldn't see him with it. He paid $500 for it. He's figuring it was probably a 36, 37, so it was a pre-war knuck. And then he'd ride it to work. and then he'd ride it home, park at his buddy's house again, and then walk back up home. And one day my grandma was coming down the road, and he went past her, and she noticed, hey, that's Kenny on a Harley, and he's only like 14 years old. So she turned around, followed him, found out where he was storing the bike, made him sell it. So that's the only bike my dad ever sold. And in my mind, I always felt like I need to build a bike in tribute to Dad's lost knuck, and even back then, this is, for me, 20 years ago now, to find knuckle parts, they weren't as crazy as they are now, but they were still more expensive. So I got into a pan head instead. I picked up a 57 pan, and that was actually the first real class project I did. So, and how that kind of worked out is I was living in this little house, little small garage, and it wasn't insulated, it wasn't heated. We had one of them 30 below nasty winters, and I'm out there trying to wrench on this pan head, and I couldn't even touch the tools or the parts because it was so frozen. I'm like, I can't do it, Didn't have money to insulate and heat the garage, and I thought, well, what the heck, I'm a metal fab shop teacher. Why don't I bring talk to the principal, see if I can bring this pile of parts in and just use it as like an after school side project to get kids kind of excited about bikes. Never known it was going to do what it did and blow up the way it did and take me where I've been. It's been crazy, but that's how that idea started. And I had brought the iron head in first. We did some work with the kids on my iron head just to kind of get their feet wet. Then I brought that basket case pan in. We built it. It was kind of an after school club. And then from that club, kids started talking. And this was right before all the Discovery Biker build-off shows and everything. It was super crazy. So I hit at just the right time where the kids who I had, there was probably a dozen of them. But as soon as that TV show era hit, all these chopper shows came out, and everybody wanted a motorcycle, and it was a 10-year wait for a new Harley, my enrollment tripled. Kids were like, hey, I seen that on TV, and I see you're doing it. I want to help. And so it just went crazy. And it got to the point where I had so many kids coming in after school, the principal came down one day and just said, he's looking at all these kids like, Billy, what are you doing here? And Jimmy, you guys don't even come to school during the normal day, and now here you are after school at school? And then we realized we were onto something because, it's like, hey, if we can get kids excited about something, they're going to come and they're going to be there and they're going to be productive. And you show them that you believe in them, you teach them those tools, they're going to be successful. And sometimes some of these kids, man, they don't get that with their history class. They don't get that with their stats class or whatever class. And not everybody's the same. We're all wired different. And I can take those kids, man, and I can show them like, hey, you can use these hands, you can do things, set your mind to it. Teach you how to be an engineer, a fabricator, a welder, and just have fun with it. And these kids are successful. Like the first bike we did, that panhead, we took it out to the smokeout. The Horse Magazine sponsored us and that, gave us free booth out there. Set up a little card table with a bike sitting there and saying, yeah, I'm a school teacher, blah, blah. And right away, caught Indian Larry's eye and Billy Lane and all these guys were helping me out, checking in with me, see how things were going. Sugar Bear, man, it's like, I was just pinching myself with all these amazing guys that were excited about what I was doing. And, the most thing I always hear from everybody is, I wish I had you when I was a teacher. I would have stayed. I wouldn't have out, and I was almost the same way. And I had a really cool shop teacher that rode an old Ironhead that really helped me too. And my pops, and my mom pushed me to keep going with my education in this. So, there's so many, it was just a domino effect of just cool things in my life because of motorcycles, and I love sharing it. I love spreading that, passion, spreading that excitement, spreading the just good vibes that comes from everything we're doing with this.
Yep. So you've had builds that you've done with your class at, I know Zeus, obviously. I was there, interviewing you and, checking out Zeus while you were building that. But then, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've also had, some of your bikes at Born Free.
Born Free, the Harley Museum.
Yep. And then Sturgis with the Lichter's exhibit. Zeus was there.
I think I've been an invite builder to Lichter show 7 times now. So I think I'm one of the highest repeat builders for that show, which is pretty honorable. I'm like, that's man,
Yeah.
School teacher, building crap in my garage, and in the classroom. But, like some of our good builds, like one of our famous ones that I was really excited to do was a Sugar Bear donated a 24 over Springer for us. Excuse me. He actually flew in town to meet my class and the kids and kind of present it to them. So that was amazing. And then from that, he had me at Sugar Bear gave a speech at the Harley Museum one year, and he invited me as a special guest. Sat me up front by Willie G, and while he was doing his talk to everybody in the crowd, he pointed me out, had me stand up, explain what I was doing, and kind of joked to Willie like, "Yeah, I'm donating him a 24 over front end. Sure would be nice if we could find somebody to give him a motor." Hint, hint. And literally, Willie looked over at me and went like this, and said, "You got a motor and a tranny." And that they had us come to Milwaukee. We built the motor and tranny on the assembly line with the workers, got it back up here to Minnesota, put it in this build. We finished it, and then after that one was in Lichter Show in Sturgis as well. And then they shipped the bike down, put it in the Harley Museum for a year. So that was really cool. You know?
That's cool.
And then the Born Free bikes, yeah, like I was a builder in Born Free 5 and Born Free 6. Born Free 5, we did a 1952 dual carb panhead kind of race bike. That one I did with my students in class. You know, I had a girl in one class that I taught how to lace the wheels on that bike and true the wheels. She ended up going on to MMI and graduate honors and did great things. So, I mean, every one of these shows that I'm a part of, I try to include the kids as much as I can so that when they see me at Born Free and they see like we won best panhead that year, it's their award. You know, they're excited. They're like, we come back and everybody's like just ecstatic that, hey, we did it, man. We took a bike that we built here in class and it won this huge show in California. You know, and it just makes the kids super stoked and gets them excited for the next project. What are we going to do next? What's next?
Oh yeah. But to build award-winning bikes and to be able to pass the knowledge on how to build award-winning bikes onto students, where did you go out of a service manual when you started? Because I know you're like a knucklehead. You're known as like a knucklehead guy now, but I know we've talked. You said, you know, you were in the panheads before panheads got popular.
Right.
You know, so like, were you searching out service manuals? Because there was nothing like really, you know, like Fix My Hog where you can log online and look up exactly how to do for your exact motor, you know, back when you were learning.
You always want to get your service manuals. There's great reference from Harley on all that old stuff. But the big thing is just getting around with a couple buddies, get some old graybeards over here that have been there, done that, and learn from them, you know. Never think you know it all. Always work with your ears wide open and your mouth shut. Suck in as much as you can from those guys because they've been there. They've done that, man. They've had that school of hard knocks, and they figured stuff out. And sometimes the manual will tell you one thing, but an old timer will say, no, do it this way, trust me. And you know, you learn by doing, and you know, you hope you can retain as much as you can and do it right. And you learn real fast if you did it wrong because you this came loose or that shorted out, like dang, you know. And so yeah, you know, I've done, you know, I rode a 1947 knuckle that I built all the way to California for Born Free 3, you know, and it's like you got to trust your bike when you got one that old. And, you know, I built that whole thing from the ground up. I knew every nut and bolt, so I knew stuff to bring with me. So I always told everybody, I said, I didn't have much for clothes. I stunk by the time I got there. But I had every part I needed, just short of blowing up the motor or, you know, exploding the transmission case to keep that thing running and make sure I get there.
Nice. Well, I know you joined Fix My Hog, the family here, and you did some videos with Fix My Hog. You did a whole knucklehead build. You want to run us down? Because some of the videos are out right now for that, so people might have seen them. If you haven't, if you go on to Fix My Hog, browse videos, you can watch Kevin's knuckle build as that transpires.
It's a girl's bike. It's my wife's knuckle build.
Okay, it's your wife's knuckle build.
It's that build there. It's a 1947 motor. It had a 48-pan frame that was in need of some repair. And that's why we did the whole Fix My Hog episode was, hey, I got a chopper that I just bought kind of deal, like, go through it. Let's see if anything's wrong with it. Ooh, this frame is in bad shape. Let's swap it out. I was able to get a real knuckle frame from a buddy. And then, you know, we just kind of spent one day going through the bike, what to look for. If you're just a, you know, first timer looking at an old bike to buy at a swap meet and you're just like, I need a panhead or I need a knucklehead. And you see one sitting there and, oh, I want it. It's like, whoa, easy. Before you throw the money at them, look at it. Don't know what you're buying because some of this stuff is just cobbled together junk and it's not going to be, you know, worth the money or time, you know. And a lot of people get ripped off nowadays because it's so popular. All the youngsters want to be on an old bike and be cool, and they don't know much about it. And they just, oh yeah, here's $20,000 for that basket case, and turns out they got about $5,000 in parts, you know. And it's like, ooh, now you're in trouble. So yeah, that bike is my wife's. Like I said, she's been riding it for years. We just went through it, tore it all down in one day, and then I rebuilt it back up. Went through everything, you know, made sure it was all mechanically sound. Fixed anything that was not right, and it's been back on the road, and she's rolling on it big time.
Nice. So what are some of the common things, not to, you know, give any secrets from the video away, but just a couple of common things to look for when you are buying, you know, an old bike like that?
VIN number is a big one. You want to look at the VIN pad on the engine case, make sure it's got legit numbers and a clean title. You don't want botched up, stolen crap that somebody stamped bogus numbers in. You can look at the belly numbers and make sure they match the VIN just to kind of see if it still is truly that kind of an error. Like, some people do a good job of a VIN stamp, but they don't think about, there's belly numbers too that have to match that. If they don't match,
Yep.
they don't know there's a problem. And you take a bike like that to Sturgis, the police do check numbers. They look stuff over and they will confiscate it from you. So you got to really be careful of that. Other than that, frame, just look at areas where stress is and cracks could happen. These bikes, they were made a long time ago. They're ancient. And, the roads were really bad. The roads are still really bad. And it's like they take a hard hit. When you're riding a rigid bike, there's no big-time suspension there sucking up those roads like the new bikes, man. You're hitting bumps and bam, you can hear everything just boom. And it's like, oh, did I break my back or did I break the frame? I got to go check here. It's just a lot of little things like that. And, just going through everything, look at all the parts. Does stuff look like it has been well maintained, or does it look like it's wore out and going to fall off, or the thread stripped, or things, JB welded and just garbage like that. So,
yep,
a lot of visual things.
Sure. Well, we're going to take a moment here to answer some viewer questions. All right, Teach. Artie asks, what year is the most reliable Harley-Davidson engine?
Oh, man. Well, since I'm a big Harley lover, I'll say all years. But honestly, any old bike, I'm not going to talk about new stuff because that's not in my realm, but
Evo.
Reliable old bikes, as long as you service them well, you maintain them well, you treat them well, you can still ride them hard. They're all going to run good as long as you do the general maintenance. No motor will ever run good with you if you just, don't do anything until it breaks. Like, oops, oh man, what was that noise? I don't know. I'll worry about it later, and all of a sudden you blow up your cases. Like, you got to be really in tune with your motorcycle. I listen to my bike when I start it. I listen to it once I'm riding it. I listen to it when I'm shutting it down. I look at stuff, and honestly, I guess I'll say a knucklehead because I've ridden them all across the country, and I still do, and I've never had any issues with them. So, I'll vote for the knucklehead.
I'll vote for a 1200 Evo. I think like a lot of it comes down to how much work do you want to put into it, and how much maintenance do you want to put into it. Because if you're looking for a reliable Harley motor, but you don't want to do much maintenance, go for a newer one. If you love getting your hands greasy, go for an older one, and just make sure you stay up on all the intervals and whatnot. And then Artie also asks, in your opinion, Kevin, how many miles are too many miles on a Harley-Davidson?
Before a rebuild, I'm guessing he's probably thinking, I don't know. I would say after about 40,000 miles, I start looking at, how do the valves look? How do the rings look? Are we smoking? Is things getting kind of wore out? So, for like an old knuck like mine, when I get to be about 40,000 miles, I'm really thinking, you know what, even if it's running good, I should probably tear it apart this winter, pull the heads, pull the cylinder, just give it a good look through. Preventative maintenance, don't wait till it blows up on you or scores a cylinder, sticks a valve, so.
Yep. All right. And then we have a question here from Ruben. Ruben asks, I have spokes on a 2006 Dyna. How often and how important is it to check the tightness on my spokes?
Well, usually if it was done right from the factory, it sounds like that's a factory wheel, you should be okay. But yeah, that's a smart thing to do. What you want to do is take a spoke wrench or a screwdriver or any kind of wrench and just tap your spokes. You should hear a nice tingy sound. Tingy means that everything's tight, looking good. If you hear a dull thud, or even if you see it wiggle, you got a loose spoke, or sometimes the spokes do break. So I would say, if you're going to go on a big ride, I would check them before you go. I like it when I'm leaving for California on my knuckle. I checked my bearings, I checked my spokes. Newer bikes, I've never had a spoke break or come loose on anything new, but it could happen. So, I guess maybe every summer at least once check them. Hit the spokes, listen to them, make sure they're in tune, and get your wheels up and give them a spin, see if they're out of true. If you hit a bump, you could knock them out of whack.
Yep. And we also have on Fix My Hog videos for checking Harley spoke wheels for tightness and how to check front spoke wheel tightness for more information on that. So let's dive into some more of the videos that we're doing, Kevin. So we got a panhead service by the book. You want to run us down what that's going to be?
Yeah. So we took a really beautiful stock 56 panhead, and we just kind of set it up as hey, let's say you're going to buy this bike, or you just bought this bike, or you just had the motor rebuilt. What's the 500-mile break-in maintenance procedure? And then after that, we went 1,000-mile service, 5,000-mile service. And what's nice about that is, and we went through the kind of the way the book tells you to, so that any viewer that buys the book has the bike sitting there, and they could follow along and also watch the video to kind of see it happen now. But it was just all the little things that you want to check that Harley recommended back in the day that say, hey, after 1,000 miles, you better check this, change that, grease this, lube that. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to keep your bike on the road forever and not have you broke down the side of the road. So that was a fun build, or a fun episode there. We went through that whole thing, showed how that bike operates. That one was a really beautiful 56, and that's, they started doing swing arms in 58, the dual glide. This one had the hydroglide front end on it, so a nice, a little bit more updated front end for those pans when they got out of the 48 Springer era. And then, we just talked about what makes this bike an old rigid pan, how are the differences between newer stuff. It's not for the faint of heart. Be ready. You are riding a rigid frame. Yeah, it's got a pogo seat, so you get some suspension through that. But just all the little ins and outs, to get people that, there's a lot of new people jumping in that want an old bike just for the cool factor. It's just like old hot rod cars too. You see an old hot rod car, you stop and look. You're like, whoa, that's neat. Old trucks and stuff like that, where a lot of these guys now to have some money in the bank are going, yeah, I'm going to buy an old Harley. I want to have an old Harley from the local show or whatever. And if you don't know what you're getting into, man, it can be a can of worms. So just, watch the videos, do your research. There's so much info out there to make sure you make a good decision and don't get hosed.
Yep. And then there's also a panhead chopper build video coming up with you that we had the panhead up on the screen there, and you want to run us down that?
Yeah, so that panhead, that's one I built back in like 04, 05. And that was my second panhead I ever built. So I built that first panhead with the students, kind of as a tribute to my dad's lost big twin. Took that one to the smoke out. And then all of a sudden I was excited as the kids were like, what's the next project? What's the next project? So I started looking for more parts. When I had bought that 57 basket case, it actually had two frames. It had the a 57 straight leg rigid frame last year, the straight leg rigid, but it was tweaked. And then it had a Paco frame, a new Paco frame. So I built that 57 with the Paco frame, a little more stretched out, lower look to it. Fit the time for me. I liked it, but I still had that 57 frame in my rafters. So finally I'm like, hey, I got a good frame, just needs to be straightened. So I took the frame down, took it to a buddy's shop. We did a little straightening on it. Found a Springer front end. Obviously that's not correct for that 57 frame, but I always loved the old Springers. I found an old knuckle Springer, put it on there. And then I kind of got wheels and stuff. Now it's like, oh, look, I got a roller here, man. If I can get a motor and tranny and a couple other parts, I'm going to have another Panda on the road. So it was game on. Again, I took that one to school with the kids. We worked on it. So that bike, it's right there in the background in front of my sidecar bike. But it's a 57 straight leg pan frame, 46 inline Springer. It's got a 58 pan motor. So that would be a dual glide style swing arm motor, but who cares? Yep. It's my chopper, and that's stroked out. It's 84 incher. It's got the 15-inch 12-spoke original magnesium American Racing rear wheel on it that was machined to run a drum brake. So that's kind of a rare little touch for that. A lot of the old timers, the old graybeards that were hot rodders in the day, they see that right away. They're like, wait a minute, how did you do that? I used to run them on my gasser. So that's kind of cool little touch. And when we did those videos, that was right after we did the 56 pan service stuff. I didn't have quite all the parts to finish the bike, so we got as far as we could. And then I was able to kind of gather with the rest of the stuff I need about a week or two after and get it running for a bike show I had last weekend. And we did have Fix My Hog There video in that, and we talked about it. And, there it is now, ready to hit the road and put on a lot of miles and smiles. And, I had my son who's going to be getting into bikes. I have one who's a sophomore in high school. He's 16, turned 17 now, and he's riding a 77 Sportster. And we had Jason Momoa here doing some videos last summer, and he actually bought my first Panda, that 57 that I built, and he's going to give it to my son Gavin when he turns 19. So that was kind of a crazy story.
No way.
So that's where it was like, and that's where Jay has a big heart. He's like, hey, man, he's like, this is your first Panda. He's like, you need that in your family. Your boys need this. And I'm just like, yeah, I wish I could keep them all, but I'm a school teacher. He's like, had to sell it to help the family get better, and he's like, oh, where it is. And I knew where it was, and it was actually for sale. So he bought it and brought it back. And it was crazy because, my son just cried all night, sat on it, and we couldn't believe it. And then that got my wheels spinning. Well, if one of my sons is getting my first pan, it'd be cool if my other son could, my youngest son that might ride, get my second pan, this 758 chopper. And my buddy Mario had the frame sitting in Arizona in the parts, but no wheels, no tranny. The motor was out, and I was able to buy it back for him for this project. And now that one will go to hopefully my other son. And then, it'd be kind of neat to be riding on the road with my boys on their dad's first and second big twin builds. And then
Oh yeah.
grandma and grandpa will be riding next to us too. I know grandpa will look over and smile, and he'll be probably on his 52 pan. So it's just crazy. Like I say, with these bikes and this history and this old stuff, there's so many paths that blossom, and so many stories and so many avenues of just awesomeness that happen because of the motorcycles and just what they bring. You meet the greatest people. There's such a good camaraderie. It's such a big brotherhood, man. And so it's just awesome. I'm happy to do what I do.
All right. Well, I definitely want to dive into the Momoa story a little bit more because that one's a great one. But before we do that, we do have some more questions here. All right, Kevin, Nick is wondering, what is the best motorcycle lift table?
I like handy lifts. Those seem to be the most durable for me. The Harbor Freight ones, there's those cheap little bottle jack ones where you pump them up. I have some of those just because they're so darn cheap. I was just like, I couldn't afford a handy lift. I bought one handy lift. I needed a couple more lifts. Couldn't afford them. Went with the little pump up foot style, but I've never had a problem with my handy. I love it. If I get the money to buy another good lift, I will be getting another handy lift.
Yep. When I was looking to buy a lift, I was looking at the Harbor Freight ones, and because you look at a handy lift and they're like $1,500 or something like that, and it's like I was like, God, I don't want to spend that much, and then I was like, well, does it really make sense to put like a $20,000 motorcycle on a $200 lift?
That's true too. There's always that, and I will say, any of those Harbor Freight lifts I buy, I immediately change all the hardware to grade 8 bolts because they use butter bolts. They use just crap bolts in those things. So yeah, that's a good point. And once you put grade 8 in them, though, there's really not much that can fail on that would hurt your bike at that point.
Yep. So there's a little tip for you if you do not want to dive in and get a handy. All right, Artie is wondering, when buying a used Harley-Davidson, what should the buyer be looking for?
Well, you want to look at, obviously, the VIN number and title, again, like we talked about, but you want to look at a reputable seller. I mean, obviously, if you're buying something sight unseen from somebody on, eBay or Instagram, you don't know them. You don't really know what you're getting. It's nice if you can find somebody who you can tell has a love for bikes, knows how to build bikes and wrench on them. When I go look at a motorcycle, if I show up to a guy's shop and he's got 6, 7 old bikes all around and he's got some nice ones sitting there and projects in the works, I know I got somebody who knows what he's doing, so I can trust his word a little more. But if you show up to some, field and the guy's got it sitting against the tree and kind of, really doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing, then now you got to probably check everything. And if you don't, something will probably go wrong. Murphy's Law, if something can go wrong, it will. So just be aware of that, and ask as many questions as you can, see what they do know, and then just do research. Take pictures of different parts of it. Talk to people that would know. Yep. Go to your bike shop, find the old gray beard, and ask them. Say, hey, I'm looking at this panhead. What do you think? And a lot of those guys right away like, whoa, that's not the right frame, or that's the wrong front end, and that looks like this or that. A lot of times they can kind of dissect it real quick just from a visual before they even see it up close.
Yep. Kevin, I know we did a video with you with your video checklist that is up. Link for is up in the chat as well. But I liked, when you were talking about the frame on your wife's build, you were like, hey, there used to be like a steering lock here that the guy routed out, and then there should be a support bar here that's gone, and like the little stuff that if you're not super into what the original looked like, you can't really know, because people do. I mean, paint and powder coat can cover up a lot of problems. Exactly. And I always run when someone says, well, it ran when parked and only needs a carb clean.
Or they say it's been rebuilt. No, that means it needs to be rebuilt.
It needs to be rebuilt. Yeah. If you're looking to buy a used chopper, there's also a video on fixmyhog.com. The link is in the chat as well on that, as well as if you're looking at a new model, we got a video on that to check out as well. All right, Kevin. Bill Johnson mentions that he is a shop teacher too, and states, I taught auto shop at Kennedy High School with Baas. That department went from 7 teachers to 1 now. Kevin moved to Lakeville High School and is doing a great job. Everyone should support shop teachers.
How you doing, Bill?
Thank you, Bill.
Good old Wild Bill. He was our legendary auto shop teacher. That man, he's got some cool car projects he did with the kids too. Good man. Glad you're on, Bill. Thanks for the kind words. Yeah, and hopefully get you out to Bass Acres for a beer there, buddy.
Yep. So let's talk about what else you do out there at Bass Acres besides, wrenching on old classic Harleys. I know you do metal fabrication as well.
Yeah, so we have a full-time, when I'm not teaching at school, metal fab. We got CNC plasma cutter. We have TIG welders, MIG welders, all kinds of metal fab equipment here. And we do a lot of kind of creative artwork stuff lately. Our sign business has really gone through the roof. We build kind of like old marquee style looking signs that kind of look like they're 100 years old, but I just built them last week. We patina them and have old style lights in them. And, that's just gone through the roof, man. Everybody loves old stuff nowadays, the vintage style furniture. I do these industrial table bases for clients that look like an old train truss track kind of deal. And that stuff is just gone through the roof. And it's exciting for me because that's what I've always wanted to do. When I started Bass Metalcraft back in my old little 2-car garage, like I was building big riveted industrial style furniture and I couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted it. Like I was the only one that thought it was cool, I guess. And I'm like, that's kind of a bummer. And then I kind of got out of that, got into the bikes more, and fast forward. Now you look online, you type in vintage industrial furniture. Holy cow, there's multi-million-dollar companies pumping this stuff out. So I kind of missed my boat there. I should have stuck with it a little longer, but it is what it is. And we're still able to kind of do our thing here, make stuff for some clients. We're going to be redoing the local restaurant called The Point here in town in Prior Lake, and doing all big industrial steel patio furniture for them with some concrete tops. So, we stay busy. The bikes and the old cars and trucks and tractors is the hobby more or less for me. It's the metal fab and the teaching and the welding and all that stuff that actually pays the bills.
Nice. Well, we got another question here. Speaking about paying bills, William asks, how much would you take for that green shop truck?
That's my 66 F250, rebuilt 390. I just got it. So, unfortunately, that baby's not going to be for sale. That's one that's going to go to one of my kids as well. I got real lucky getting that one. It's came from Alabama, barely any rust. It's some mismatched. The cab and bed are different colors, but overall, solid truck. Real nice 4-speed in it. Rebuilt big block 390. That baby's going to be the one that if I got to haul a bike to a show, it's my old knuckle go in the back of that, and I'll be pulling up in that. So thanks for asking, but not for sale.
Teach a follow on Instagram, and maybe someday he might change his mind. Probably not though, but maybe. All right, Teach. So one of the things that I love about you as a builder, as a rider is, number one that comes to mind is obviously your passion teaching, your passion wrenching, your passion riding, even to the point that you ride knuckleheads in ice and snow on lakes. Yeah. On sandy beaches. You're kind of known as the guy to not baby old bikes, even though old bikes are rare and old bikes, cost a lot of money. Is that how you got hooked up with Harley and Momoa?
The story goes way back to when we built that first bike with Sugar Bear's Springer and that motor, and Harley just kind of stuck with me through the years. They were donating motors and parts and things, and I bleed Harley, man. They're my number one sponsor and supporter. They helped me get to Born Free when I was taking bikes out there. And, I just started getting into, the race aspect. I have a 1977 Ironhead dual carb. It's got 2 rear heads on it, drag bike, and I drag race that. And then a good buddy Mel, who puts on Trog, he hooked up with Harley for the 115th to do the Bradford Beach Brawl, which was the Trog racing around the oval track on Bradford Beach. First time in 100 years that bikes have raced on that beach. So that was pretty cool to be one of the few old bikes invited to be on that. And then, all of a sudden I get a phone call, man, that one of my Harley buddies said, hey, I got somebody that's going to be calling you. We're working on some special projects with somebody, and they're going to be coming your way. And we told them they need to come by your place, maybe use you guys. I'm like, okay, cool. Not knowing who it was, and phone was ringing, and I was like, all right, finally get the call. I answered, like, hello, who's this? I said, hey, this is Jay, man. I want to come out in like a week to do something. And I'm like, Jay? He's like, yeah, no more. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, well, they didn't tell me that. I'm like, that's cool. How you doing? And, I'm not a starstruck person. I like good people, So for me, Jay, it was like, hey, I know he's a big famous actor. We'll see how he is when he gets here. And I'll tell you what, I was so pleasantly surprised. That man is awesome. He's rad. He was like one of us, man. He's not the I'm a big actor and you're not. Get out of my way. He's a sit down right next to you, his arm around you, drinking a beer, just talking, man. And he's got a good soul, and that's where that whole story with buying my first pan, give to my son, shows that like this guy cares. Like he's an awesome dude. And he was supposed to be out here for 2 days doing these commercials, and we hit it off so good. He ended up staying for 4, and we just made so many memories in those 4 days. And I can't thank the guy enough because he used my wife and some of my boys and some of the Harley videos, so they're in those, which is cool. And just for what he's doing to get that panhead back and give to my son, I'm forever grateful. And it was such a cool experience. And then this last winter we had some ice racing I did. So my 39 knuckle pre-war knuck there, the blue one, that's a stroker motor, short rib case, pre-war knuck. So for those of you that know what I'm talking about are going, ooh, what are you thinking, man? Don't blow that thing up. But I've been racing that bike. It's balanced good. And, it looks old and crusty, but I know it's internally sound, ready to rock. And if all goes well, I'll be racing that at Trog this year. And I think it's in October. I got to change a few things because that's one thing I like about the Trog stuff is, they want it period correct. They want it the way it should be. No S&S carb stuff or big hot dog things, unless it was period correct for that era. You got to have your plumber style intake, not the rubber band, just little things like that. But that makes it so cool because then when you go there, you're getting, if you took a black and white photo, you'd think it was 80 years ago, and that's cool to me. So, running that bike on the ice was awesome. And hopefully, I had it at the beach for the 115th, that the beach brawl stuff. And just, I don't know where the future's take me, but as long as my body can hold up and the bike's still kicking, I'm going to be getting out there and putting a little abuse to them just to make sure they still know who's boss.
As long as you don't crash like Jeremiah from Love Cycles did, I support that. All right, we got on the chat, we got Molly says, I'm digging the van behind you.
Oh, yeah, that's my 66, 69 Dodge van. That's my camper van. So that, as I said, I like old stuff. My vehicles, my cars, my trucks. That's kind of my surf cruiser there. I set it up inside so I can put two bikes in it. And if we go to like a bike show, we pull up in that. We open the double doors on the side. You can see it's got the camper pop top. And that's kind of our display. Then, we can sell our T-shirts out of it and have our bikes in front of it and a little table. So good eye there. Good eye. That's awesome.
So if anyone has any questions here for Kevin Baas, whether it be a fabrication question, welding question, Harley question, riding question, he is a man of many talents. So what's next, man? What's coming down the line? We got the Fix My Hog videos coming down the pipe. What else is going on for you?
Like personal project stuff. I'm going to be starting a 46 knuck chopper. It's got original Smith Brothers and Fetro girder on it, so that'll be cool. We just had my barn spray foam, so I'm finally insulated, and it's going to be warm in the winter and nice and cool in the summer. And that's going to open doors for our metal fab business year round. My wife, she does that stuff all the time. That's kind of her full-time gig here. So that's fun for her and I to be able to work together and make this stuff, on our property. And we're getting the property ready for some more weddings that'll be coming up. We do weddings out back, and honestly, like right now, like this point of year, we got Sturgis coming up here, and then school's going to be starting up, and I'm so excited for school. I'm just hoping no masks, no virtual. We got to be able to go back, man. And I've been watching the news, which I usually don't watch the news because I just hate how negative it is, and I can't stand all the crap that's on there. But I've been watching it here and there, mostly to see the weather, and then I kind of catch whatever they're blabbling about. And I'm starting to see, like, another wave, another virus, and I'm like, no, don't do this now, man. No. I need to be in class. My students need to be in class. You can't weld virtually. You got to be in there, seeing.
No way.
Yeah, and it'll break my heart if I got to go virtual again. We were virtual about 75% last year, all online. I was lucky enough to team up with Miller Welding and get an online curriculum that the kids would go through to kind of work toward the certification. So, yeah, not as cool as being in the shop, using the CNC plasma cutters. We have a water jet cutter and TIG welding and MIG welding, but it was something. But I'm like, I can't do it again, man. It'll break my spirit.
Yeah. Do you have any bike build plans with the students for this upcoming year?
That's going to, so I had the big chopper class, like Bill Johnson mentioned back in the Kennedy days. I had chopper class with Mr. Bass, which ran for, I think 20 years. And that was kind of the mainstay that got me known in the industry, got people to kind of put me in the radar who I am and what I do. A lot of good sponsors through the years. And, now I'm at a new school, Lakeville North. This will be the start of my 5th year there. And I've spent these last 4 years literally just kind of going through that whole shop, getting rid of the junk, cleaning house, bringing pride back to that area, showing kids that this is a place to be proud of, that you can learn a skill to make a lot of money, not have to be in college debt. And, I've been spending a ton of time and effort working with my community, working with our superintendent and the the school board and all of our local businesses to get all kinds of new equipment in there. And I'll tell you what, my shop, it's got more stuff than most actual manufacturing companies have. And when businesses come, they're excited because they're like, you're teaching these kids the real world stuff that they're going to be able to go out and do. I mean, I think I'm the only high school in the world right now that has a 4 foot by 4 foot water jet cutting table. It's brand new from Bailey. Bailey helps us out, gives us steel and stuff. So thanks to Bailey Industrial. We got 2 CNC plasma cutters. One's a 4x4 table. One's a 4x8. We have, shears. We got mills, lathes, you name it, man. And so these kids are going to get that valuable hands-on working with your digits, making stuff, becoming an engineer, taking an idea and bringing it to life. I always tell my kids that, like, what's this class about? And I say, this class is about making dreams a reality. Whatever you're dreaming up in your head, tell me about it. Get it on paper. Let's engineer it. Let's get on CAD. Let's create it. Let's build it. So when you leave here, you have it, and you can be proud of that. And these kids, man, nowadays, the cell phone era is crazy. Everybody's just looking at their phone, doesn't want to do anything. I'm trying to create an avenue for them to say, hey, let's put the phone down, pick up the welding torch, pick up the metal fab tools, and let's make something. And I can show them that there's so much fun stuff you can do as a career path. It's not going to be a boring job where you're sitting there like, oh man, clock's going slow. These jobs are high paced. You're designing, you're building, you're moving around all the time. The day goes by in a snap. So I'm just trying as hard as I can, man, to look for this school year and hope that we're back full time and just keep building upon what I've been doing. Like my whole life's been just a kind of Lego block stacking up. And I never have a high enough tower. I always want to add another level. Here we go. It's like keep my fingers crossed and my heart open, and hopefully the world will figure its crap out and get back to normal.
Yep. Well, I know, because I went to welding college and I have a fabrication background as well. And I know that gave me a lot of confidence in working on my own bike and, diving into that kind of stuff that, because when you start to work with your hands, you really learn how to work with your hands. And if we can get that going with the youth today, with programs like yours at Lakeville North, that only actually helps the motorcycle industry too. I mean, I was talking to Matt Waxler last month and I was like, with Harleys, new Harleys being more expensive and every year, it just seems like that price is creeping up. And I get it because their costs are creeping up. But if people want to be riding motorcycles, it's almost like the used market that's kind of where it's at to get your toe wet into Harleys. Is you can go get a used, you can get a used Sportster of almost any year and hop in and start working on it yourself and, use those skills you learned in like a STEM class about how to work with your hands and cracking a service manual and logging on to Fix My Hog and figuring out how to, because, when you do get an older bike, you're going to have to work on it unless you take it to the dealership. And then, and everyone I talk to that works on their own bikes, it only deepens the bond between you and your bike.
Yeah. If you don't want to work on your own bike, you shouldn't get one. That's
no.
Sure.
But I understand people sometimes they get a bike used or new and they're nervous to work on it. I know I was, when I got my Sportster new, I was a little nervous to work on it. So what advice would you give anybody to wrap this up about who's nervous about working on their own bike?
Visit the smaller shops. Going to like a dealership isn't always a good plan because they're busy and they're not going to let you just come in there and talk to them. But try to look up your local, smaller mom and pop bike shops, custom chopper shops, whatever it is, metric shop. Doesn't matter, but somebody who's been doing it for a while, go visit them and just let them know, build a bond with them because you always need a mentor in everything you do. If you find some mentors that will help you, because a mentor doesn't look down on you for asking questions. A mentor doesn't pick on you for doing something wrong. A mentor truly wants to see you get it and understand it and take the torch from their hand and pass it on to somebody else down the road. It's a passing of the torch of knowledge, and a true mentor, a true good person wants that knowledge to be spread. I mean, with my students, I love to give them as much as I can. I even tell them, I'm still learning, so I don't know it all. If there's a question I don't know, that's awesome because now let's all figure it out. Let's get on the internet and see what we can find for it. And let's find the answer as a group. So you're always learning, you're always doing, and you gotta believe in people. You gotta care. I mean, I remember even when I first met you, I know you're not a student, you're an adult, but I remember we were at the Cyclosaurus on stage.
Yep.
You had asked a few questions, and then I remember hearing that you were in welding school, and I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
come up here, man. Why don't you come up here and do this? You know,
Oh man, that
that's what
scared me so much. Yeah, I was still in welding school, and here's Kevin, my friend Pat Jansen, and then Chris Callan working on Chris's personal bike. They're customizing Chris's personal bike, and they took a front fender from, I think it was like an Electroglide,
yeah,
and you flip it around to make it the rear fender, but then you got to cut the fender out to fit the battery. And Teach is like, hey, you're in welding school, come up here. And we had started TIG like 2 weeks prior.
you killed
I
it.
wasn't great by any means. And you're like, hey, why don't you weld the battery box? And you were talking on the mic, and I walked over to Chris Callan from Cycle Source. I'm like, hey, Chris, I mean, if you don't want me to do this, I totally get it, because I just started welding and I don't want to mess up your bike. Like, that's the last thing I want. So I'll talk, because I'm good at talking, and then you can have Teach weld. And Chris is like, no, you weld it. And I like flipped down the hood, and I was just like, oh my.
You were in your zone, though, man. You did awesome. That was great.
Yeah, it came out great. And then I got my subscription to Cycle Source, and there's the bike on the cover. And I'm like, the first thing I ever weld.
Yeah, I think that's the
Was
first
the
time
cover
you
bike.
went, man. And then after that, it was like, then I remember seeing you at the Donnie Smith show with Fix My Hog, and
Yep.
it's been good, man. That's where these old motorcycles and bikes and just the brotherhood, it brings on new friendships, and it just, you never know, turn any corner who you're going to meet, what new friends you're going to make.
Absolutely. Well, we got a couple more questions here. In closing, Casey's asking, hi, Nate and Kevin. I have a 1998 95th anniversary edition Electroglide Ultra Classic with almost 30,000 miles. What should I look out for service? Is it a good, reliable bike?
Very good, reliable bike. Those are nice bikes. Those Evos are good motors. Check the cam. I would have the cam looked at, see what kind of cam's in it. That could be wearing out. Check your tappets. If you're leaking any oil, that's always a telltale. You got to check a few things. But if it sounds quiet and it's running good, I mean, those kind of bikes, they're big mile bikes. You can get a lot of miles on them before you got to worry about too much. So just give it some. Always have the ear open. If you hear any little ticks or clicks, that's when it's time to look at it.
Absolutely. And you can check out the Fix My Hog maintenance videos. The link for that is in the chat as well. And I'm also a big proponent of just watching all the Fix My Hog videos, even for bikes that maybe you don't have, just to, keep your eyes and your brain going in motorcycle maintenance and, repair and that kind of stuff.
You're at an event and somebody's not there working on their bike, and it's nice if you can walk up, hey, I know you got to do this or do that. Like,
oh yeah.
Get somebody back on the road, man. That's earning their wings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, Kevin, where can people find you on the internets?
My social media stuff, Instagram, it's Kevin Teach Baas, Baas, all one word. I got a pretty good Instagram following there. A lot of pictures go up all the time. I'm on Facebook, same thing, Kevin Teach Baas. And then, my wife and I, we kind of have our metal fab business now. It's under a few names. I have BassMetalCraft.com. I have VintageBikeAddiction.com. But the big one that we're really kind of focused on is the littlefishdesigns.net. And that's where my wife has like an Etsy store that shows stuff we've done. People can order things. Our T-shirts will be on there for the Bass Acres. And, it's I guess social media would be a good one because I check my Instagram. I post stuff quite a bit. Send me a message there if you got a question. And, again, thanks for having me Fix My Hog. It's awesome to be part of the family. And everybody who tuned in and is watching, I appreciate you being here. And just remember, man, let's just keep these old bikes going and share knowledge, share the love for the sport, share the passion, and let's hope we can raise our kids to be better people than we were.
But keep our bikes going.
We'll keep our bikes going, yeah. And old vans.
And old man. Well, everyone, thank you guys so much for tuning in and checking this out. Be sure to go check out the Knucklehead builds with Kevin Baas from Bass Acres. He's got swag. You can hit him up on Instagram right there. And then stay tuned for the Panhead service and maintenance by the book, as well as the Panhead chopper build videos coming up. Kevin, as Keith Bass says in the chat, you're an inspiration, big bro.
Oh, my little bro. What's up, Keith? Yeah, Keith, he just moved to Arizona. He's got a really cool bike. So I'm excited to get out there, do some riding with him this winter, get out of this 30 below and go to his nice sunshine. So what's up, little bro? I'll see you soon, buddy.
Right on, Kevin. Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us. Everyone go check out Kevin Bass's videos as well as his socials and keep wrenching on your bikes. Kevin, thank you so much and welcome to the family.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right. Till next time.